get underway here. I think I know most of you, but my name is Seth Longartz. I represent the Bennington Senate District in the Senate, along with Robert Puckett over here, with the two reps in this district. And we're going to start off, first of all, thank you to Laura Burton for making this space available to us. Thank you for the crew who did the setup and who will be doing the takedown. Thank you on both ends of that. We're going to start the evening. Call your attention to the flag over there, and with Molly Harper, the senior, Burton Senior, singing for us as we salute the flag with the national anthem.
Is completely incomprehensible to anybody. And I'm oversimplifying, but it's very difficult when you have budgets that pass that you're paying less, but your property taxes go up significantly. And when your budget goes up, you might not be paying much more property tax. So that system is what's broken, and everyone heard that loud and clear. So in Montpelier and the legislature, it's what the focus is to address that issue. And coming directly with that is the issue of governance of our schools. there's no way to really separate the two, so there has to be the conversation, not just about how it's funded, but also about how everything is governed. So tonight, Senator Bongartz, he's going to outline the policy objectives that are under consideration, the education reform proposals before the legislature, and their implications for the overall system. So that's public schools and independent schools, and also school choice. This is going to be part of all of the discussion tonight. And this is a conversation that Vermont's been having for 200 years, and it's 200 years of tradition in how we have taught our kids. And our voices, my voice, Seth's voice in this conversation, supports the tradition that we've had. Our county is different from many of the other counties, and we want to keep the system that we have as intact as possible. And I'll be stark about this, that we support the independent school system that is what happens around, especially the north of the county, but it's also part of the entire county, and the symbiotic way that our kids are taught. So just about to wrap up, we have to conclude by 7. So it might be a hard stop at 7. We've got to be in Montpelier very early tomorrow. There's time allocated for questions, but not everyone here is going to have a chance to speak. Our contact information, not on that slide, but it's going to be on one of the slides that you see. And we're going to pose several questions to you, and the answers will be, standing up, and we'll see what you say about that. And we're also going to show some different ways that you could effectively advocate for your schools as the months come on. So now, I'm actually just about done. So even if you didn't hear anything I've just said, it doesn't matter because I'm turning it over to Seth Bongartz. And Seth's the chair of the Senate Education Committee, so he's really right in the deep of this. And he'll guide us through the proposals that are being considered for consideration.
Am I live, Jim? Am I live? People can hear me. Okay. So, a couple of things before we start that's actually not on one of the slides, I realized, is that, and just have these numbers in mind. Well, let me do a couple things. We've got a few reps in the room. In addition to me and Rob, I know that Kathleen James is here. I think Rob Hunter. I know I saw Sandy Pincinel, and I assume Chris Morrow was here. But anyway, those are our 4 reps from this immediate area who are deeply involved in this as well. I've seen Mark Tashton. I've seen from Burton, Colin Igo from Long Trail. And I know I saw Tim Newbold, and I suspect both Dan Skoglund and Carson Thurber are here as well from Maple Street and SMS, respectively. So the numbers I was going to mention as we get started. So there's about 85,000 school kids in Vermont at this point. And one of the slides will show what it was 20 years ago in the decline, but so I'll leave that behind for 1 minute. And of those 85,000, about 8,000 are what we call tuition students, kids who live in non-operating districts, and I'll get to that in a minute, but just stick with me on this. Tuition students, half of those tuition students in areas that don't operate schools, half of them go to public schools. That leaves about 4,000 kids who go to independent schools. So what we're really talking about tonight is about 4,000 kids out of the 85,000 that go to independent schools across Vermont. And of those 4,000, relatively speaking, all but about 800 go to the 4 traditional town academies of St. Johnsbury, Linden Institute, Thetford Academy, and Burton. Those other 800 go to places like, a number of them are at Long Trail, a number of them are at Sharon Academy and other places, and some at even elementary schools. But just to give you a sense of what we're talking about, those are the big numbers. So let's go to the slides here. I make sure I don't forget anything. So I'm going to try to stand. I'm going to be blocking somebody, but there's nothing I can do about it, I guess.
So overall, enrollment in K-12 public education has declined 21% in the last 20 years. So that brings us down to the 85,000 that we have in the system now. We are also dealing with a fragile system where many districts with few students struggle to provide educational opportunity. And that's, of course, increasingly true as the demographics work against us, as they are continuing to do with this shrinking student population. That's a whole other discussion what we do about that. We're not here for that tonight. We have a high cost of operating many underutilized schools, and that diverts dollars away from students and limits funding to addressing the burden maintenance and capital needs. The lack of scale that we have in parts of the state limits opportunities and makes Vermont even more vulnerable to shifts in federal funding and state economic changes. And inequity in terms of student access to a robust course list, electives, sports, enrichment. So if you don't have enough, it's kind of obvious that if it's very small, you can't do the things you can do if you have scale. So that's kind of part of the discussion I'm doing here is about scale. And we have, as Rob mentioned, we have a Byzantine funding formula that drives up property taxes and produces absurd financing results. We saw this in the 23 budgets that were passed for the 24-25 school year a year ago. What we have is a system where people vote their budgets. We all vote our budgets. You go to your school meeting and you vote. But you really don't know. You look at the size of the budget and you go, okay, that looks reasonable, and you check the box. But you actually have no idea how that relates to what you're going to pay in property taxes. Because all of those votes, all of those district votes across the state, I'm simplifying here, but all of them just go into produce one big number in Montpelier, I'm speaking figuratively, but one big number, and then all the legislature does effectively, obviously there's more to it than this, but what the legislature really does is just set the multiplier to raise all the dollars everybody voted. So that's the legislature's obligation. So what we really have is a system that I said during the campaign that's almost ingenious in that nobody's responsible. And when you have a system where nobody's responsible, things tend not to work well. And that's why there's a whole lot of reasons we had a 20% increase in voted by voters across Vermont last year. There's all the residual effects of COVID, kids' mental health issues, but we also have that's combined with shrinking demographics. So we have to, as we're thinking about how we move forward with this and how we figure out a path forward, it's very clear we have to change that funding system into a system where somebody is responsible.
Government waste.
Okay, so next. So a few key terms. School district is the governing body, like Taconic Green for most of the people in this room, is the school district responsible for the delivery of public education, setting a budget, raising taxes. They operate one or more schools, as happens with Taconic Green for summer upgrades. And then the supervisory union, and I saw Randy Lowe here, and just also the chair of our supervisory union, is an umbrella organization comprised of multiple school districts for the purpose of providing services that are shared across the different districts. Things like special education, transportation, HR, payroll, etc. So on one level, the districts run it day to day. That is the umbrella organization that goes across the top of several districts, one or more districts, and helps do those partially back office. That's a gross oversimplification as well, part of the operation. So in operating district, these terms become relevant, so stick with me. An operating district is a school district that operates one or more public schools and operates. So if it's a public school like Men's or Arlington
or non-equity, those are called, those are part of the operating district. And an operating district, so the non-operating district is a school district that doesn't operate public schools for some or all grades. There are a lot of towns in Vermont that are totally non-operating. They don't have any schools at all, K to 8, I'm sorry, K to 12, pre-K to 12 these days. Pre-K to 12, well, a lot of those are in the Northeast Cape, we've got some here. And we have some that are partially non-operating, like we have here, we have a hybrid here, where the Taconic Green operates K through 8, and it's non-operating 9 through 12. So independent schools are schools that are independently governed and managed, often with unique missions. Local examples, Burn, Long Trail, Mountain School, Whitman Hall, Stratton Mountain School. There are other schools in the state, the Compass School in Westminster that is really focused on square pegs. Kids who don't do well in a traditional setting need some specialized services in a special environment in order for them to be successful. There are the schools like the ones we know and the missions that they have, and then we have some that have much more compact and unique missions to help a certain cohort of kids. Some of those schools are quite literally saving kids. And I would say that about Compass School, Cherry Academy, and I'm sure there's others. And private school, when you hear that term, you know somebody's trying to mislead you. Because this term is independent school, and when our opponents use the term private school, they're trying to conjure up elitism, right? They're trying to conjure up that your dollars are going to choke in Andover, they're exclusive and nobody else can get into. As you know, with these schools, and the schools, the independent schools in Vermont are focused on Vermont kids. And they are often popping up because kids need help. The small ones like Compass and Sheridan I mentioned, or the historic academies, they're for all kids. And we all know that. So when you hear people use the term private schools, they're trying to mislead you. That's just, so keep that one in mind. Tuition is the money paid to a public or independent school. And here's another one. When you hear somebody talk about vouchers, they're also trying to mislead you. There are no vouchers in Vermont. They don't exist. Vouchers are when you are in an operating district and kids can take dollars from an operating district and go somewhere else. In Vermont, we have a tuition program which only adheres to areas of the state that do not operate schools. Very, very different. So when you hear private school and you hear vouchers, you know you're getting lied to. Okay. So how do various education reform proposals impact school choice and access to independent school? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do the lead off here, sorry. Rob and I have been getting emails and calls from people especially the northern part of the state, but also North Bennington and other areas. How do the various education reform proposals impact school choice and access to independent schools like Burn, etc., Longfellow, etc.? Do any of the proposals close or consolidate schools? And the answer to that is nuanced. Some do kind of, will any of these proposals save money? Will they stop property taxes from increasing? I think the answer to that we'll get to, I think is yes, at least on the scale of really, really slowing down the growth in the rate of increase, partially because somebody will be responsible. And what could a consolidated school district look like under these proposals, and what voice would we have for the new districts? That's one that we hear a lot. That's a question all over Vermont, and it's complicated, and I understand why it's being asked. And when any of the proposals improve educational outcomes, I think we have to keep that front and center. I know that Rob and I have had this discussion I've had with Kathleen and everybody else, and that we improving educational outcomes and opportunities has to be top of the line for this. It can't just be about money. It has to be about money because, as we all know, people are having a very hard time paying their property taxes. So we need to do something about that. And as Secretary Saunders will say all the time, we need to both really, truly, substantially bend the cost increase curve, and we have to keep educational quality and opportunity for kids front and center. So that's what we need. That's top of mind. So I think this is just something that I think you need to know and understand. We're under constant attack, year after year, kind of no matter what, under attack, because we're different. So here we are, Vermont School Boards Association, Vermont Superintendents Association. The best approach for the state is to kill independent schools. We pull tuition from independent schools. Also, Vermont Superintendents Association less than a week ago, tuition is a policy decision that weakens the education system. That's actually not true because these schools are areas that don't operate schools. We take the place. So, and we need to eliminate reliance on tuitioning. And this last one is amazing. This was just a couple of days ago. In response to the proposal that the Senate is working on, that actually shrinks school choice to areas of the state where it's integral to the delivery system, and actually takes away the opportunity for some independent schools, and I'll get to this when we get to the Senate proposal, to receive tuition. So here we are, offering something that actually shrinks areas of the state that are not operating, and eliminates the ability for some schools to gain tuition. And the response is, we're not interested in gerrymandering. This, of course, has nothing to do with gerrymandering, it really making sense. And to preserve our favorite word, right? Vouchers. So I guess what you need to know out of this is that to say we're under constant attack, we try to put something together, and the attack is not, oh, you're not dead yet. Okay, that's what we're dealing with. Okay, next. So, we're going to take a look at Governor Scott's proposed education, governance, and funding reform plan that was introduced in the House as H. 554. And then the House Education Committee plan, which was a strike all to the governor's plan that was voted out of committee on Friday. And then the Senate Education Committee concept. So let's do them one at a time. Governor's proposal, and I want to stop here for a second and say that even though there's a lot about the governor's proposal I disagree with, and we disagree with, and that would be bad for us, I also really want to acknowledge that he's made a bold proposal. He's recognized, and he and Secretary Saunders have recognized this, we must have structural reform. And that if we don't have structural reform, we are in an era now of cuts. The reason school budgets passed this year is because there were cuts made across the state. And we are in an era where if we don't fix this problem, it's going to be cuts and cuts and cuts. And that's not good for kids. We need to, we can't do that. So even though, I want to say, even though I disagree with a lot of what the governor proposed, I really respect him and Zoe Saunders for bringing forward a real proposal to do something. He could have simply said, we're not going to accept, you're the legislature, we're not going to allow anything that is more than a 2% increase or whatever, and just hammered it down, or taken budgets down with a hatchet. He could have done that, but he didn't. He did something, he put himself out there, expending some real political capital to put forward a real proposal. So,
what the governor's plan does is we have now, and I think everybody would agree this is almost bizarre. We have, with 85,000 students, we've got 52 supervisory unions and 119 districts. Seems a little excessive. So what the governor proposed was to consolidate all of that into 5 districts, 5 major big districts. That's got some issues that we'll talk about. And it moves to a, but by the way, just to stop for a second, say about the larger districts, what you can gain with larger districts is scale. You can, we have these small supervisory units and districts. It's very hard to build a bench. So when one person leaves, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because we can't fill that. It's very hard to fill positions. So if we have larger districts, we can gain scale, we can build a bench, and we can offer more specialized services, put money in the right places within those districts, and make some decisions about class size, school size, what they want to do at that level. So there is a wisdom and a logic to the larger districts. And by the way, we're going to end up with larger districts. Because even the House proposal that I'll talk about has, well, I'll come to that, I'll leave that for now. So, but then the other major piece here is that the foundation system, rather than what we have now, a Byzantine system that nobody understands, we have, I'm really simplifying here, but we have a system of, you could call it a block grant, that per pupil, per weighted pupil, weight means things for like poverty, English as a second language, all of those things that get added into the cost of educating a student. But weighted per pupil block grant that would come to the district depending on how many students there are. And the amount that would be available for each of those students would be set by the legislature. Somebody would be in charge. And so that's the foundation, that's called the foundation formula, and that is what most states do. The vast majority of states operate on a system like that. So, then it went into, all the 5 districts would be fully operational. There would be no independent schools under this, and let me make a caveat to this, it's true. But it's also true the governor is absolutely not hostile to independent schools. And I'll get to that in a minute, despite kind of what this says. I've had enough conversations that I know that the governor is absolutely not hostile to independent schools. And so all districts would be fully operating and every student would be assigned. Then there would be regional school boards, would be required to designate. Everybody would be assigned to a public school. I think in the secretary's mind, frankly, when she put this together, she was thinking of somehow turning the independent schools into magnet schools. And magnet schools are public. I think, frankly, she didn't fully understand how the independent schools in Vermont. Believe me, she doesn't have them. And access to school choice schools would be controlled by a lottery system. A total disaster for us because it would undermine our, I would say, sacred relationship with our sending towns. And so that's frankly off the table. And then the secretary's proposal eliminated any choice for anything other than 9 to 12. So that's the governor's proposal. By the way, that was then. They've moved a lot through discussions, and they have gained a much better sense of how things actually work on the ground since that was first put out. And I think we'll see something they're much closer to what the Senate is proposing, frankly. So here's the governor's proposed map, just to give you a sense. 5 large districts. This one here, part of Addison, Chittenden, Grand Isle, is 35,000 students, way too big.
because it's also true that at a certain point, there are diseconomies of scale. So we're trying to, in the end of these discussions, we're trying to find a sweet spot. But I think there was a real sense that a lot of those regions were too big. That's what we heard as we began to take testimony in committee about all of this. That became a theme. And there were other reasons that the larger districts, and especially when we fully operating, are not, that's not going to happen. That's kind of off the table at this point. So that the governor's proposed map with 5 school districts is not going to happen. So, next, Jim. So, the House proposal. Passed the House on Friday. Offered as a sprinkle amendment to the governor's proposal. Like I said, that's kind of a lot of ways off to the side at this point. Passed that in committee and the vote 7-4. So, one of the key jobs the legislature is going to have to do is drawing those district lines. And that's not without a lot of interest, shall I say. Among everybody from around the state, we're all going to want to know what district we're in, where the lines are. And people get worried if they're too big because they feel like they'll lose touch. All those factors that are going on in here sort of constantly. So the House proposal establishes a committee of retired former public education officials to develop proposals for statewide districts. And you'll note that all of them have a minimum size of 4,000 students. So as we note here, just for reference, the entire BRCU, which includes the Taconic and Green District, plus Winhall, plus the Meadow District, has 2,100. So we're going to go into bigger districts. Frankly, the idea of former educators putting together the maps is something about which I have deep concerns. So, until late Friday afternoon, last thing, the House plan would have required all 3 proposals to be fully operational for all grades, no independent schools. But Representative Hunter, who serves on that committee, was able to change that and make provision that in order for him to vote for this, that it would have, for that bill to come out of committee, that it would not have that language and that independent schools could be part of the mix. Now, this is where I just want to take a second and acknowledge the work of Kathleen and Rob and Chris Morrow and also Sandy. And I see them huddling in the State House, trying to figure out the right move, the right steps. They have been dealt in the House, frankly, they have a really bad hand. Because the House we have a hard time in the House. And the votes are what the votes are in the House. And so what Rob was able to do, and I know that all of our reps were involved in this decision, Rob was able to make a really, really bad bill better. And that matters. Why that matters is that when we come to the point of a conference committee, when this is all over, when the bills get flipped, our starting point is now better than it would have been. So even though Rob voted for what is a really bad bill, he got something for it, something really important for it. And so I was encouraging him to do that and do the right thing. Our delegation in the House did everything they could, and I think they played a really bad hand as well as they could have played. But the bill, eliminates the tuition to a lot of post-independent schools, mandates minimum class sizes for public and independent schools that serve publicly tuition students. So really interfering with operation of our schools, which is one of the things that we guard against at all costs, is interference with governance in our schools. That's what makes them what they are. And then it sets up a process where the legislature makes final decisions next year about school districts' boundaries and what, and if any, independent schools might remain as options. So, not a good, house is not loose. Bad starting point, really horrible bill, but that's gonna come over, and we'll deal with it in a second. So now we go on to the Senate proposal. And by the way, it's a little bit early because, in a way, I put this in, frankly. And so I'm a little bit reluctant to say it's the whole Senate's not there yet. There's a lot of discussion going on. But Governor calls it the Senate proposal, so I guess I can. Seeks to improve educational opportunities through increased scale. That scale issue that we talked about. Allows for implementation of a sound foundation formula, moves from the 52 supervisory units in 119 districts to, and we'll see this on the map in a minute, 9 large districts. 9 large areas, 6 of them big districts, 3 of them supervisory unions, and these are the 3 areas of the state where school choice is integral to the delivery of education. Those would be set up as supervisory unions so that we can have a mix of districts. Some of them operating, some of them fully operating, some of them not operating, some of them partially operating different grades. So the supervisory unions allow us to accommodate that different setup of districts in these 3 areas of the state. So I guess I already talked about it. It contains constrains school choice and access to independent schools to those areas of the state that lack school infrastructure and where they are integral to the delivery system. And this is, when this came out, that's where that comment from a couple days ago from the NEA came from. Even though we are shrinking it, some schools won't be able to continue to receive tuition if they haven't had a lot of tuition students in the past. But that's where the response from the NEA was, oh, they're not dead. That's going to constrain it, but they're not dead yet. So, okay, next. So here's the Senate proposal. And what it does is take that large district, this is the thing we heard a lot about, that large district running from Addison up through the islands, and breaks it up into some smaller districts. And our district here was going to be with well into most of Rutland County, so we would have had, it would have been like a big Bennington-Rutland district, which I think is actually too big for this area. So we moved that down to be basically a Bennington County district with a few choice towns from Rutland pulled in. And then if we go to the next map, here it is. Here's the 3 supervisory unions. And this is important for us to think about because sometimes we can feel like we're all alone here fighting this battle all the time. We actually have some friends. In my committee, we've actually taken a lot of testimony from people up in the northeast part of the state. About the importance of, for large, this area here, for instance, is totally joined. It has no operating schools, all that blue up there. And because it's very sparsely populated. By the way, this is a rural phenomenon. These areas that have school choice have grown up, they've grown up in rural areas where it's been hard to have where it hasn't made sense to operate a lot of public schools. And very rural up there. Our district, even though we're in Manchester, if you look around, all the towns involved in this is very rural, actually, very rural district. So that's what partially is going on here. But a lot of testimony about the importance of all of this. So that's how this would look. And by the way, the different colors refer to whether it's fully operating K through 8, 9 through 12 choice, or different configurations, or fully choice, or in a couple of instances, elementary school choice and not high school. So that's that map. And then we go on to the next one. And this is just a little closer look at our map. And it would largely consolidate the BRSU and SDSU to move together along with Fuel School District from adjacent areas into a single supervisory unit with 5 member districts. Again, all of them operating differently, like with like. And this would consolidate 2 supervisory unions, 2 current supervisory unions into one, and 12 districts, 12 school districts into 5. So it consolidates even as it maintains our ability to have the system that we have always had here. Next. So, thoughts. Next. So, questions, just a couple of questions. That, you know, we're doing this, we think we know what people hear, what people want, so several advocacy groups, you know, I pointed out some of them at the beginning, want educational reform to result in the elimination or curtailment, frankly, the elimination of school choice and access to independent schools like Berger, Longtrail, etc. If there are public schools, one proposal is within a 75-mile radius. So, assuming there was funding to help defray the cost for those of us who live here to construct a regional high school to which everybody went, if that were option A, or option B, maintaining our current system of school choice and access to independent schools like Berger, Long Trail, Mountain School, etc. Which do you want? If you want A, stand up. If you want B, stand up. Okay. I guess we're doing all right. Okay. One other question, I think. One of the things that is constantly going on is the effort to try to turn these schools effectively into public schools. With the same kind of standard. The schools operate differently. They, you know, it's in DNA. These independent schools have their own DNA. There are things that make it possible for them to succeed. And it's different from the public schools. And that's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And so the question is, should independent schools conform to uniform standards, or would you prefer to see independent schools retain their flexibility to innovate and meet the needs of their students? Let's skip the first, well, would you prefer to see independent schools conform to uniform standards? Stand up. Retain flexibility? Stand up. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. One of the things we wanted to do is give you some sense of what you can do. Watch this space closely. Pay attention to the papers. Go on to the committee sites. And if you click on it, like the Senate Education Committee, it'll tell you what we're doing that day. You can click on right now and see what we have scheduled for the week. And then each day you can see the materials that people have presented for that day. Stay engaged, take a look at it. And be in touch with me and Rob, and be in touch with the House delegation. So just pay attention to the fact that the details of any change to school district governance and the governance of independent schools matters a lot. Getting this right is really important. And so just watch for the nuance, and just let elected officials at every level, because it's really important, that's all I made here, it's really important that our select boards, our school boards, everybody is engaged in this with us. Because we need the total support of of this whole area in order to effectively take this on. But we have our counterparts up in the at least in the middle of the state around Medford Academy, fighting the same fight. We're all, by the way, in this together. We all know each other, frankly. And so that's part of what's going on. And then finally, Rob had promised you our contact info. By the way, just so you know this, every legislator, first initial, last name, at ledge.state.vermont.us. So and you can contact anybody using that. And so you don't need to, by the way, you don't need to tell me and Rob. If you want to do something, we're there. But you can give us suggestions, you can offer us your thoughts, and call the governor's office. The governor's office, and don't, it's not like you're not calling to say, you're playing forward to say, I think if you say, we really like the Senate plan, just they'll just register that. Where the Senate seems to be going. And by the way, the Senate plan is still in its infancy. We're still figuring, there's 1,000 details. We're focused right now on the governance structure and getting it that way. And I think what the governor is going to want us to do by the time we adjourn is have the governance structure, at least a framework in place with a checklist of all the things that we have to figure out still underneath of it that we'll work on over the summer and fall into next year. That and the framework for a foundation formula. And the foundation formula, incidentally, there's been talk about doing just the foundation formula without changing governance. The problem with that is that there will in some ways exacerbate the problems for small districts, because the block grant that comes will have an assumption that will be built on the assumption of an efficiently operated district. And if it's imposed now on some of these really small areas in the state, these small schools, they're going to get killed. So the only way to fix that is to dump a lot more money into the system, which also is not popular because property taxes go up. So we really have to do this together, the governance and the foundation formula, the appropriate people block grant. So, so that's where we are. What to say?
If you were to reach out to, would you be able to provide us with a succinct action plan or key messages?
We can develop something for you to do, and I think calling the governor's office and letting them know, and just talking to your school board, select board members, everybody, all over, about how important this is to you. I had 3 people as we get started. By the way, we are going to try to end at 7, partially because we have to go to Montpelier, partially because the school people who are doing this have to clean up, and partially because this is a pre-dinner meeting. So we're going to try to end at 7, but I had 3 people who asked to speak. So I told them yes, and then we can have, then people can follow them. And the first one was Rabbi Michael Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. And thank you, Seth and Rob, for showing real leadership in representing our needs in Montpelier in the state. That's what democracy is about, and we do it really well here in Vermont. I also want to thank our representatives in the House who are fighting, perhaps even a harder fight there than we've got in the Senate. And I want to thank Seth for his Vermont Education 101 lecture that we just have. It's not so simple. So this is the feel of a town meeting or an old town meeting. Like we're all here, the place is filled up, and we're here because we have a message and because we care. And the people here clearly have people who are children in the future who are going to come here. We have people who are parents now, and we have those of us who are much older who won't. But we care as a community of how Manchester and this area of the North Shire operates. And one of the keys to that is the uniqueness of this place is our sense of that we have the independent system, we have choice, and of sending towns. We have a gem of how we do education in Vermont. And not every part of Vermont is going to do it the same way. But the way we do it here is right, and it produces results that we are so proud of and that we so want to preserve. And it It is great that we have all turned out at 5:30.
And Seth Leach was on the list.
Thank you. I'm not quite as slick in public as the rest of these fellows, so I prepared something written. I also wanted to keep my wife from writhing with anxiety as I rattle on too long about something which I can do every now and then. But I do stand here tonight with, I think, a relatable message as a dairy farmer in the state. You know, there are fewer than 400 dairy farms where there once were thousands of dairy farms. As a parent of a student in Long Trail School, and just as a really concerned community member. So I wanted to get my words right, and that takes a little bit of time for me. So I'm Seth Leach, and I'm one of the few remaining dairy farmers in Paulette. I'm also a proud graduate of public schools, a Long Trail parent, and a big supporter of the way school choice serves the families in our area. My youngest brother went to BBA. I have 2 boys now at Long Trail getting a great education. My amazing herd manager at the farm, Hannah Fay, has 1 daughter at Long Trail in 7th grade and another younger daughter who, quote, can't wait to go to Long Trail. Hannah is the kind of smart, talented, hard-working person that could go anywhere and do anything. I feel very fortunate to have had a job to offer at a time in her life when she was looking. And I know that without question, the excellent schools in our area played a huge role in her decision to ultimately take the job and bring her girls to Paulette. Our community needs more Hannahs, and we're only going to attract those great people by continuing to offer the educational opportunities that our current system affords. It feels more than a little like this system is under attack by people who simply don't understand what it is. A group of schools that have evolved to offer our sprawling rural community exactly what it needs: a high-quality education available to all our kids. This isn't about private schools and rich and privileged. It's a system that does a great job serving everyone. If my numbers are right, 1/3 of Long Trail students come from Paulette and Rupert, and nearly 3/4 of the Long Trail students are on town tuition. These are kids like mine, like Hannah's, like Jeremy and Jenny Russo's, our neighbors, growing up on farms and in small towns, learning about the world, figuring themselves and their futures out, going on to great colleges, if that's what they want to do. This is all an option for them with our education system being what it is. This isn't part of Vermont's education system that needs fixing. This is the part that's working just fine. So I'd like to urge anyone with a vote in Montpelier to support Senator Baumgart's proposal to preserve school choice in the areas like ours that depend on it. Thank you.
The last person who has to speak is Hank Michael. Then we'll open up the mics.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your excellent explanation. Thank you all for being here. My name is Hank Michael. I'm here on behalf of my wife, Sheila Michael, President of the Parent Association, who couldn't be here today, but I'm here to offer this brief message on her behalf. If you'd like to lend your support to the proposals for school choice discussed this evening, the Parent Association is organizing a very short petition to be delivered to the state government. So please look out for an electronic communication from the Parent Association about how to participate in this effort, and we believe your support to be really valuable. And that's it. Thank you very much.
So we have half an hour. The mic is open if somebody we know.
Hi, Seth.
Hi.
So I'm Erica Marthage. I'm the Bennington County State's Attorney, and I am a BBA alum, Go Bulldogs. And Always thought they'd go here, but that's the beauty of school choice. Long Trail is a better fit for them. I could go on all night about school choice, and I think most of you probably know that, and all of the things it did for me as an underprivileged kid growing up here. I never would have been able to do what I've done without being able to come to Bremerton. But my question is, from an attorney perspective, of course, I want to know, when I'm interacting with folks in Montpelier or my reps or the governor's office, if we're talking about such a small number of students that are actually attending independent schools, how does focusing on independent schools have such financial impact to even make it worth it? So, yeah, so what's the weakness in these other two proposals? Because it doesn't seem to me that we need to reorganize and find that, but...
It is a mystery to me, frankly. It is truly a mystery to me, because if we were to say, for reasons that are kind of being articulated by some, to not have Bremerton be doing what it does, the alternative would be to spend a couple $100 million to build another public school next door.
So that's my question.
And so it makes,
when you guys prepared all of your proposals, are you giving a bottom line, like, this is how much money you're going to save if we blah blah, or we're just guessing?
we haven't gotten to that point. I mean, it's pretty clear that if you replace the academies, you'd be talking hundreds of millions of dollars. And we've been having a hard time finding that in Montpelier, by the way. And I don't think any of you want to, my guess is none of you want to pay that. So it is illogical. It's irrational.
And that's why I'm asking this specific question, right? Because my experience with a lot of the folks in Montpelier, no offense, but there's a lot of governing by philosophy. Well, this seems like a good idea, and that seems like a good idea, but the practical application of it, I'm struggling to understand. That seems like an easy answer, right? Take the independent school stuff out of your reorganization, and it's not going to cost you millions of dollars. Just leave us alone.
It'll cost nothing.
Yeah.
The schools are a good deal, actually.
And I was here 10 years ago talking about the same thing, so I know this is not like something that goes.
So, I'm Brittany Nebraski. I formulated this in the last 30 minutes, so bear with me. So for background, I'm a teacher at a Dorset school, and my kids are supposed to be 6th generation Bulldogs at BBA. So obviously I take staying local and history and connection into consideration. But my kids are 3 and going to be born shortly. So the people I talk to are young families. That's the people I socialize with. And the vast majority of people I'm talking to are saying things like they moved here or they live here for small class sizes, so the 25 minimum kids per classroom makes no sense. Or they're saying straight up, if we lose access to BBA, I'm moving. And as you started out saying at the beginning of the presentation, we have an aging population and a declining population of students. So I don't understand what the logic would be in driving families away that are trying to stay here now and making it so other families don't want to move here. I understand that we're trying to keep property taxes lower so that families also can live here, but it seems like we're throwing away one thing to create another problem, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm Adam Pruitt. I am a resident of Manchester and a proud father of a 9-year-old at Maple Street right now. My question, I think, is, kind of build a coalition with the House scale to drive costs down to where you kind of have some buy-in both from your colleagues in the Senate as well as the House, and then something that the governor's not going to veto?
The economies of scale, if you look at the academies where most of the kids are, they have scale. And Dorset, the Lone Trail has scale. A lot of the other schools have scale. A few of them are smaller because they're specialized. They're like I mentioned, one of my favorite little independent schools is the Compass School, just because it provides a home for kids who will otherwise not make it. So I think we have the scale. These schools would be operating, by the way, on the same budget under this plan. I didn't get into this, but the independent schools would get the same per pupil block grant as the public schools, and so they would be sort of by definition as efficient because they wouldn't be taking any more money than what the block grant is and have to operate within that. There's possible nuances to that, but that's part of the answer. So we already have the scale.
I'm thinking specifically of healthcare costs.
Yeah. Healthcare costs are a key driver, to state the obvious. They're a key driver of what's driving school budgets, so it's not all just, part of it is the mental health crisis, and the residuals from COVID. Part of it is rising healthcare costs. Both healthcare committees in both the House and the Senate are really operating from with the knowledge that the healthcare situation is dire. There may be ways for us to, I know that, I don't want to get into the details here because I don't know enough to do it, that's why I don't want to. But I know that Burton and St. J have changed the way that they're doing healthcare in order to bring down costs. And I'm not sure how that all works, but I know that it's a part of this. We can't solve it, but tonight we need to focus, tonight we're focusing on the governance structure. Your question is highly relevant, because, but for now we can't solve the healthcare crisis tonight, but we can get the framework properly in place. And by the way, the other thing we have to do, I'm digressing a little bit, but with the cuts that we know are going to be coming from Washington, the way they're going to hit us, we need to have an efficient system across the entirety of our our educational model. And so part of this restructuring of the larger districts and the larger SUs is to bring efficiency so that when those cuts come, we're in the best position we can possibly be to deal with them. Yeah, thanks. I guess we're going back and forth. So.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Haskins. I'm a resident of Jamaica, so I don't have tuitioning, I don't have choice. But I do have a vested interest in independent schools because I choose to send my child to an independent school anyway. I am actually, my comment is more regarding public outreach. So I know a lot of parents, a lot of our community doesn't have the time to go and do the research and look for the bills and look for the news articles and all of that. I have teamed up with a great group of parents, and we have a Facebook page called Rural Southern Vermont Public Schools Community Forum. No abbreviations, everything's spelled out. We are trying our best to post articles, to post the bills. We have links to the bills, to Seth's proposal. We're doing our best to get the information out there for everybody, so request to join our page. We'll get you on there, and hopefully we can do the work for you. Thank you.
I'm Ed Marlowe. Barbara and I proud to have two granddaughters go to Burton. And nicely informed about governance and policy issues. Now I'd like to hear you talk about, well, I think it's going to come down to politics. How many we've got 2 here and 3 more representatives. I don't know what the numbers come down to. Those areas that have independent schools, they have representatives in both houses. How many are there, and how lopsided is the vote going to be, and how do we get to the other ones in this board to come along, those who are already for what we want?
One thing is that the House, as you if you looked at that map that just broke out after 3 SUs, and then it showed the rest of the state, a lot of the House districts are in that rest of the state. They don't understand this. They think it is something other than it is. They think, for instance, that there's discrimination. Like, I don't know that these schools, I was on the board here for 19 years. I've never seen that. It doesn't happen here. So they don't understand that it's very hard to break through to get them to understand how these schools truly operate, how deeply they care about kids, and how much they do to bring in the kids, especially focus on the kids who need it the most. We all know that's true. It's hard to get them to get it. The one good element of the politics is in the Senate. Because if you look at those 3 areas that I showed that run from the southwest up through the middle of the state and to the northeast, a lot of Senate districts touch those. And we have senators, even some senators who are not impacted by school choice directly or independent schools get it. I don't know why that is, but a lot of them do. So I think we're in a much better position. The numbers were really badly stacked against our friends in the House, who I mentioned earlier. It's a little bit more tenable to put together a coalition in the Senate. It's also a small enough body that Lon and I, you get to know each other really well in the Senate, in a way you don't in the House, and so you really have a chance to form relationships and to try to get people together. So there's that. And the governor, despite the fact that the governor's proposal kind of appears, frankly, anyway, I didn't like it in a lot of measures, but they will come in behind this in the end.
Well, I like the idea of approaching the governor, I understand that, but perhaps you can dig around a bit and give us some advice on people in those districts who are semi-friendly, who could be swayed. And we've got a lot of people who are articulate here, write letters, and work on these people, so we essential votes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, keep that one coming.
My name is Gabby Carpenter. I'm from Sunderland, and I have a daughter that goes to Long Trail School. I just wanted to address what a previous speaker had said about people who move if they don't have Burger or some other independent school to go to. I would like to do that as well if I had the choice, but it is a fact that my property value will drop by 1/3 to 1/2 if there is no school choice. So we would be trapped here, and we would not be. We would have to go to whatever school they mandated, which is not what we really want. Not only will my property value drop, but so will my taxes. And you will have less money to work with in the end.
Hello, Senator. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Maria Cummins, and I'd like to assume that I'm representing the special needs community in our area. I run an inclusion group in the Manchester Community Library, and I have 2 boys with autism, and one of them attend here at Burton in the Access program, and one at Dorset School in the RISE program. My question to you, Senator, is what is the impact on our special needs community? And we know the housing issue, correct? What if our children do not attend the 13 towns? And what if we cannot afford to be in those 13 towns? And how can we ensure school choice for these children and the impact and ensuring the same level of service for these children if we can not afford to stay in our sending towns and we have to live outside of those sending towns, and ensuring that they are in the same school choice and having what they're accustomed to.
Got a lot wrapped up in there.
Yes, I know it's a lot, but that's what our special community needs, so
and
I appreciate that.
I appreciate the fact that you're pointing out.
Your mic's not.
Back on? Battery went down.
Your batteries ran outside.
So I appreciate you referencing how hard these schools work, and I want to really be clear here, all of our schools. I mean, I know that at the district level, the supervisory level, what the supervisory union does, and how focused they all are, whether it's independent schools or the public schools, on doing the best job they can possibly do for. But special needs kids benefit from choice just like everybody else. I'm very familiar with the program here and how wonderful it is. But I want to make sure that even as we talk about the benefits of choice for kids with special needs and otherwise, that we also recognize that supervisory union and the public schools are working really hard as well. But nevertheless, we all benefit from choice. So thank you.
Thank you.
I have a micro question and a macro question. I'm Nina Wilmeister. I act as son of Montreal. My micro question is about elementary school choice. If I understood correctly, in your plan, the elementary schools that would be eligible to receive tuition from towns who do tuition elementary school would have to reside in the district that doesn't operate an elementary school.
In the SU, anywhere in the SU works.
Anywhere in the SU. Okay. So then, for example, Maple Street could continue to receive tuition funds from those towns.
From those towns.
Right, not Manchester, I
tuition.
understand, but okay, fine.
Okay.
My macro question is sort of to add to the gentleman that was speaking about politics. How do you address, I guess, not only in your committees, but also to people who ask, this idea about fairness? You know, I've read lots of things from people in other parts of the state. Partially it's because they don't quite understand how it operates. But there's a lot of people who say, it's not fair. Why should those three, you know, large supervisory unions, for example, have school choice and we don't? And I understand that your point is that those districts have been traditionally dependent on an independent school structure. But how do you address, what is that point? It sort of goes to the gentleman's question about how do we go out and talk about this?
Thank you, yeah. That's a question that clearly comes up. I think the answer really is the one that you referenced, is that these places, it's rural, it tends to be rural Vermont, it's grown up that way for that reason. And the fact that, you know, it's always really important to recognize that it's not that one system is better than the other, it's that they're just different. They operate differently. And Zoe Saunders, in her proposal, she was widely misunderstood. What she was actually trying to do with her proposal is, for instance, those other 6 districts, is provide so within those districts, choice for those towns, and to set up each one of those, it's kind of like a magnet school, public magnet school. So she's trying to bring some of the same things that happen in these districts into that system.
That's the 10% lottery.
Yeah, which I don't know about all the details of that, but I know what she's trying to do. The funny thing is about this in the end, for all the discussion about it, I haven't had anybody in one of the fully operating areas, one of those other districts, say, we want to change to be like you. They like what they have. Fine. I haven't heard anybody here say, we want to change to what we have. Also fine. So I think the answer is in part, one answer is most of these kids go to the 4 academies. It would cost a fortune to build public schools right next to them. And what the rationale for that would be is unfathomable to me.
And are there schools in the other 6 districts, not the 3 SUs, that are currently independent schools that would, by the nature of your proposal, close or not receive dollars anymore?
Yes. And the way we did that was, this is partially to pull something together that we can get people behind. But we did it in a way that we said, if your school is located in an operating district, you can no longer receive tuition dollars. There are some, but there's not many there, because most of these schools are, for obvious reasons, in non-operating districts.
Then what happens to Maple Street or Red Fox?
Maple Street would be open tomorrow. It's here. The other thing we said, there's 2 levels to this that I didn't get into. We said, so if you're in one of those 6 fully operating districts, any independent school there can no longer receive tuition dollars. Now, as it turns out, even though there are some, most of them have a very small percentage of tuition students because they're in operating districts. And so it is not critical to them as a lifeline for survival. The other thing we did is, but even so, in order to try to stick to our mantra of we want to keep school choice where it is integral to the delivery system, we also said that if in the 23-24 school year you didn't have at least 25% of your kids come from tuition dollars, you can no longer take tuition dollars. Again, not integral to the system if it's less than 25%. The governor's proposal had 51, that's way too high. But 25, those schools are not dependent on this to survive. It will damage, there's things, it's too bad. I don't feel great about that. But we're trying to do something that really preserves choice in places where we have to preserve it because it's so critical. And be able to bring some of the, thinking about that Laurel's question, be able to bring some of our counterparts along with us and show that we're actually trying to meet them in a reasonable place. So, thank you. Yes. Okay, you're next.
My name is Alex Fitzpatrick. I am a parent. I have 3 children, one at Dorset School and the Dorset resident, one at BBA, and one at Long Trail. So throughout that day, thank you for coming to speak to us tonight. My remark actually is addressed to the NEA. I was shocked to see that quote. I am also a teacher in the district, the BRSU. So I'm hoping that our local union representatives have taken note, because I think it's a shame if the NEA does not understand the tuitioning system and is confused about comparing that to the vouchering system. So shame on them.
It's very frustrating because we all know what these schools do and how much they all focus on kids who really need them the most. And it's just very frustrating to have that be the responsibility. Last question, thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for being here. My name is Ann Craddock, and I have 2 children who attend Stratton Mountain School. I know you haven't heard much about them tonight, but my question is more so on your timeline, because I'm understanding that some of these bills are moving forward, and I work as a nurse. I've been a nurse for 18 years. My husband's a small business owner, so we do rely 100% on the school choice platform, and you're mentioning that this will go into effect this fall. No, not this fall.
No.
Okay. Well, what is the timeline on when some of these changes will go into effect?
But it'll take on some level several years. And so the first thing we're trying to do is get the structure for governance, the framework in place, and get the framework for the foundation formula and how they fit together. But there are, underneath of that, there are literally hundreds terms of questions we need to think through and answer before this thing becomes operationalized. So I think the best case scenario for this year, in terms of moving forward, is to get that part that I just said in place, and then it doesn't become operationalized until we have done everything that has to be done underneath it. And I see us, if we can get there, working through the summer, fall, next year, getting a lot more done, and probably even more after that. Because there are, it's kind of scary how many people have, it's like a ball with 1,000 threads, and we have to get them all, make them all, to mix my metaphors a little bit, make them all mesh or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you all so much for coming. And with your reps, and thanks